About 100 farmhouses illegally built on 200 acres of land on the outskirts of Gurugram have been demolished by the Haryana Department of Town and Country Planning in the past 1 year. Now, these were built on agricultural land in areas like Wazirabad and Sona. According to reports which quoted the town planner R.S. Bhatt, unscrupulous builders took advantage of the pandemic when officials were busy with COVID-related duties. What did they do? They laid out network of internal roads and erected electric poles and built a boundary wall to woo prospective buyers. Now today on the Property Show, we get down to the basics of investing safely in farmhouses and farmland and how to ensure you don't get duped. Joining me on the show, Mani Rangarajan, COO of Housing.com, and Gaurav Jain, Vice President, North Nareshko and MD, Samyak Properties. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. Mani, now the demand for land plots for farmhouses or just farmhouses itself has gone up substantially in the pandemic, with people wanting more open spaces. And it seems that this is one segment which is very open to scams. I mean, these things happen over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely, Manisha. So when you look at the demand for farmhouses during the April to June, we have seen about more than a 50% growth in demand for farmhouses across the country. And if you look at the price buckets in which the farmhouses are being offered and the agricultural lands are being offered, it ranges from less than 10 lakhs to over 5 crores. And close to about 30% of the supply is priced at greater than 1 crore. And in terms of the cities where we are seeing a lot of this supply come in, we are seeing a lot of supply of agricultural land and farmhouses come in Noida, Hyderabad and Telangana. The Medak region in Telangana is another crucial driver when it comes to supply, followed by Chennai, Mumbai. And you still have a healthy supply of agricultural land and farmhouses in Pune and Bangalore. But as you said, it's very, very critical to look at a lot of things before you invest in farmhouses. So the first thing is that if you're a non-resident Indian, you need a specific permission of the Reserve Bank of India before you invest in agricultural land or farmhouses. Secondly, the rules for buying agricultural land and farmhouses differ from state to state. For example, in some states, you could buy agricultural land only if you are a farmer or you hail from a farmer's family. And in other states, you can buy it irrespective. If you want to convert the agricultural land to a residential land, then you have to get a CLU certificate for conversion of land use. And if you want to continue to use that agricultural land and want to build a farmhouse around it, then there are specific guidelines on each state as to what the FSI is and how large a farmhouse you can construct. And normally it's the maximum is about like 10%. And even then, the farmhouse cannot be used for commercial purposes. It can solely be used for the residence of the person on the farm and who's actually carrying out some agricultural work. So there's a plethora of rules across states that one needs to look at. And I'm just touching the tip of the iceberg because there's a lot of documentation, a lot of easements, a lot of other things that people did look at before buying agricultural land.
What I'm hearing is that it's not such a straightforward buy that a builder just comes and tells you, look, I have this land, I've cut out these plots and I've built an internal road, I put these electric poles and guess what? This is a great investment. Gaurav Jain, what paperwork, if you can just specify to us, should a buyer demand to see before getting into any of these schemes?
So, ever optimistic as I am, I'll give you a perspective here both about Haryana and Delhi. I think these are the two very strong markets in which we operate and we are familiar with. So first of all, Haryana government has today laid out very extensive, policies, wherein as if you buy an approved project, which is approved under eco-friendly, project as they call it, and that is where the farmhouse get designated, you can actually build a decent house. And I would say that, all approvals are in place. So it's like buying any other plot in any other developmental colony, but the size here is 1 acre for that matter. So you talked about the action by Mr. Bhatt, and I would say he's a very strong enforcer of the laws. And unfortunately, though the policies are in place, but there are people who are not following them, and unfortunately, therefore, the buyers get into such a trap. So I would say from a Haryana perspective, all you have to do is check on the DTCP website, get the approvals like any of the licenses. And if the project is licensed, please go ahead and buy it. There is absolutely zero downside, and you can actually enjoy the comforts of farmhouse and live the way, this new quality of life which is required of all of us to live post-COVID. Number one. Number two, as far as Delhi is concerned, Delhi is on the cusp of a very high quality policy called GDA, Green Development Area Policy, in which, most of the areas of Delhi which are not part of the land pooling are now getting converted into this particular policy. It has seen a great amount of traction, and we are pretty hopeful that in next couple of months, this will see the light of the day. 1 acre minimum size with 20 FAR. And I would say that, you could actually build a project of at least 8,000 square feet of FSI area onto this particular location in each of the, let's say, places like Chhatarpur, Bijwasan, Najafgarh, and all the area which are touching the Haryana under the Green Development Area Policy.
Mani, so, when, let's say, this is a licensed plot of land which is now cut into smaller plots of land, and then they are sold to investors or home buyers who want to build their own farmhouses, does this also have to go through RERA registration, just like a project has to? Because, that is a very easy check for any buyer. This project is worth investing in. At least my downside is safe because it is RERA registered.
Yeah, Manisha, that certainly it has to go through RERA registration, right? But I've not really seen too many developers who kind of launch a lot of agricultural lands together, right? So RERA registration is normally applicable if the number of apartments exceeds 8, or I believe if the land exceeds a certain price, right? But you're right. If the project is RERA registered and if the land is RERA registered, then there's a lot of risk which gets removed on part of the buyer, right? But generally, the attitude that people seem to have when buying land is land does not depreciate, right? And land is expected to appreciate in value. And so investors feel that buying agricultural land in neighboring districts of tier 1 and tier 2 cities and rural areas is a great investment alternative in the prevailing market conditions. And also if, for example, if there is an acquisition of land by the government, if you buy it in a tier 2 city, in a rural area, that's much more than for it's an urban area. A lot of state governments are also planning a land pooling policy, and if you become an owner of land under the land pooling policy, you can get some amount of guaranteed returns in the pools. So there are indeed some advantages to investing in land, particularly in agricultural land, in peripheral areas of tier 1 and tier 2 cities and in the rural areas.
Gaurav, would you say that it's, easy enough? I do see a lot of HNIs and even, middle income group families saying, the city is likely to expand in this area. Let's go ahead, negotiate with a farmer and buy a piece of land. If not now, maybe let's say 10 years later or 5 years later, it's going to give us bumper returns. Is it that easy?
Well, so first of all, to answer your last, question first, that does it give you a bumper return? Undoubtedly it does, I have yet to see an asset class which is totally risk-free, zero maintenance, and it goes up. Any infrastructure which gets added to the area, any land use zoning which gets changed, gives you a very high quality returns. However, the downside is the following. If anybody feels that he can actually go buy a piece of land and therefore, comes back home, I'll be very honest, the whole process is fraught with, I won't call it uncertainty, but there is a process you have to go through. So definitely buying land, because it's a high risk, high return game. So high risk is therefore required to be quantified. Please ensure that you have a decent lawyer who gets your documentation done, gets the title checks, because there are land uses which varies from state to state. In Delhi, there's a thing called Delhi Land Reform Act. So there's a section 33, section 18, and you don't know which section it falls into. Land may be under acquisition, land may be under ridge and forest, like for example, some parts of Delhi are, and as we all have heard in the newspapers, They face demolition actions every second day. So I would say that definitely it's a great return asset class. Absolutely no issue on that. Just go through the process in a very systematic manner, and there is no downside thereafter.
All right. So you're saying it's not easy. You will have to get that agricultural land converted first if you want to build a farmhouse on it. Number two, please get legal verification done. And yes, if you've got the appetite of taking that risk, then go ahead and take a punt on it, because farmhouses are, like Mani said, in high demand across the major cities of India. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. This was a good segment of basic do's and don'ts on buying farmland with the intention of building a farmhouse. Stay with us. We come back to look at the case of Lord Shubkamna project in Noida, where 650 home buyers have been stuck in an incomplete project since 2012. Yes, that's almost 10 years now. Is there any way out for them?